गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी
यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन
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 यमुनतिरावनचारि
यमुनतीरा वनचारी
यमुनतिरावनचारि
यमुनतीरा वनचारी
माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे
कृष्णा
हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण
कृष्णा
हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the Sunday Fish program. And now we are going to have a class. We are very fortunate to have His Grace Keshav Prabhu. Prabhu is a youth member of our congregation and he is well versed in the scriptural knowledge. And we are already witnessed one class and we are going to have one more. So Prabhu born devotee in the ISKCON family, and Prabhu is a wonderful Kirtanir. Just now we had listened to it. We are very fortunate to have Prabhu's class once again. With that, we will welcome Prabhu by loudly chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Over to you, Prabhu.
अन्येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरौ श्रीयुतपरकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगुणाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगुणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशचारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, everybody. So I was asked by Satyasar Prabhuji to speak a little bit on Gita chapter 4, verse 9, about the nature of Krishna's appearance in the material world. I was a little bit worried at first when I came last week and I heard Mahaji also speaking on chapter 4, verse 9. But it's giving me the fortune to go a little bit deeper into this because I have slides, but none of you can see them. Don't worry about it. They're just note cards for me right now. When it comes to people who come to ISKCON temples or who become devotees, I've seen a few different types. And especially whenever I'm trying to research or prepare for a class, I always want it to be something that I can relate to myself, not that I would just say something that everybody else in the audience will also already know. And so Mahaji spoke very nicely about the idea of how by understanding Krishna, then we don't come back to this material world and what that means. But it's a pretty high bar, evam yo vedi tattvataha, to understand Krishna in truth. And like I was mentioning, whenever I see people in ISKCON temples, myself included, there's many different categories people. I'll see people who are coming from a Western background. And for them, that'll be its own difficulty because they'll have to accept, okay, God is a small blue boy who herds cows. And that's a very big adjustment for them compared to their conceptions of God usually. And so they take a big leap of faith in accepting Srila Prabhupada. And they say, okay, Krishna is God. But then anytime they look up Krishna in any encyclopedia, any type of literature, what's the first thing they'll hear? Krishna is the 8th incarnation of Lord Vishnu. So then they're even more confused by that. Okay, what does that mean? Is that he's Vishnu, but like 1/8 as good? Is he like is he God or is he not God? Or if you've grown up in like Hindu family, coming from Indian background, I'm somewhere in between the two, then more of you can probably relate that we all have friends who will be asking you, why are you so fanatical about Krishna being God? You know, you're making so much difference between him and Vishnu. They're both the same. In fact, they're all the same. Why are you making so much distinction, like a fanatic, you know? By show of hands, anybody has had somebody or even thought this themselves at some point of time? So, and so it becomes a very, like, I guess, interesting question, a deep question, really, as to why is Krishna specifically set aside by our acharyas as Swayam Bhagavan, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Srila Prabhupada put it. And what's so special? What's so different about Krishna? That was originally the title of my class. And it's a bit of a heavier topic than I expected to go for Sunday feast, but I beg of you to please stay with me a little bit. In the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta boliya chitte nakara ul alas, iha hoite Krishna lage sudhirda manas. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of conclusions of Shastra, or Siddhanta, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So it's necessary for us to sometimes go a little bit deeper than we expect, deeper than we anticipate into Shastra to actually get something deeply out of it. But it also doesn't mean that it's an easy endeavor. Krishna is like an ocean. Trying to understand him is, we're barely like one drop. So similarly, Kaviraj Goswami, he prays, Durgame patimendasya skalat padagatermuhu svakripa yashtiranena santa santvablamanam. He says that my path is very difficult. Because he's making the same point when he's writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. The first like 5 chapters are making this exact point. What's so special about Krishna? And then he goes one step further by saying, what's so special about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So he said his path is very difficult. My path is very difficult. I'm blind, and my feet are constantly slipping from the path. Therefore, may the saints help me by granting me the stick of their mercy as my support. So whatever we're speaking is only dependent on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, and I'm also dependent on all of you as my seniors. Please correct me if I say anything wrong. So again, we're speaking, starting at least with this idea of this verse, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. I'm going briefly over it because we spoke about it again just last week. But Srila Prabhupada translates this as, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So we understand, at least from last week, that Janma Karma Chame Divyam, that Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental. That he's avatar, that doesn't have a material body, he doesn't take material birth like how we come into birth with crying and a lot of like effort and strain and everything. He comes of his own sweet accord, not bound by karma, not bound by any reactions from his past lives. He comes of his own sweet will. So his birth is transcendental and his activities are transcendental. And we understand that evam yo viti tattvataha. We understand that in truth. And that will allow us to become freed from the cycle of birth and death. But what does it mean that Krishna is transcendental? And like we said, how does that make him different or the same from Krishna? From Vishnu, sorry. So we could go into another entire like tangent about who is God really, who is the supreme person. And because this is an ISKCON temple, I'm not going to use the entirety of my class to try to convince you that of the Vaishnav person point of view that Vishnu Tattva or Vishnu is God. But just for the sake of completeness, there's a few places in Bhagavatam where it's very clearly cited, right? One of them that I read, not recently, quite a few months ago, but somebody shared with me and I liked, is from Gajendra Leela. All of you know the story of Gajendra, where the king of the elephants, he's being caught by the crocodile and he lifts up one lotus flower and he's praying to God. Now, Shukadev Goswami says, Evam Gajendra upavarnita nirvishesham brahmadaya vividalinga vidhabimanam naite yado pasashipur nikilatma katrat tatrakila mayo haryavya. The text is a little bit smaller than I thought. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, when the king of the elephants was describing the supreme authority, without mentioning any particular person, so he didn't call anybody by name. He's like, oh, Supreme Person, oh Mahadev, oh Shiva, please save me. Oh Indra, please save me. Oh Brahma, please. He didn't say like that. So therefore, he did not invoke the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, and Chandra. Thus, none of them approached him. But he still had a very clear conception that there is a higher power out there, that there is a supreme person, and I don't know who he is, but if he is there, then please deliver me. So there's a very clear conception of God there. And because of his clarity of conception there, the Prabhupada continues, however, because Lord Hari is the supreme Purushottam, the personality of Godhead, he approached and delivered Gajendra. So he made this very clear point that even without being asked specifically by name, that Hari or Vishnu is Purushottam or Paramatma. He is the Supreme Lord living within everybody's soul. So he came and delivered Gajendra. Similarly, again in Canto 8, then it said, Yatahi skanda shakhanam tarur moolavasechanam evam aradhanam Vishnu sarvesham atmanaschahi. That Vishnu Aradhana, the worship of Vishnu, is like pouring water onto the root of a tree. That's the only thing you need to do in order to maintain the entire tree, because he's sustaining the entire tree. So when one pours water on the root of a tree, the trunk and branches of the tree are automatically pleased. Similarly, when one becomes a devotee of Lord Vishnu, everyone is served, for the Lord is the super soul of everyone. And so, yeah, we can understand from that at least as a point of basis for starting our examination, that Lord Vishnu is the supreme person. And we hear, okay, well, Krishna is incarnation. Okay, well, who is Krishna in relation to him? And Krishna speaks many times in Gita of his own qualities. Gita 7:7, he says, Matta Paracharam Nanyat Kincharasti Dhananjaya. That everything rests on me, like pearls on a string. Right? There's no truth superior to me. Matta Paracharam Nanyat. There's nothing else superior to me. In 10:8, the beginning of Chatur Shloki of Gita, he says same thing. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Good. So we all hear this, right? We know this. And so Krishna is giving almost more specifically that he's above anybody else. So if we don't understand tattva, if we don't understand the nature of Krishna, then we can be confused as people starting in the process of bhakti, as I was confused also. What does that mean? Does that mean that he's speaking that as Vishnu? Does that mean that he's saying he's higher even than Vishnu? In fact, he says this many times. In 10:42, he says, Ata va bahunai naitena kim gyachena tavarjana vishtabyaham idam krishnam ekam shena stito jagat. He says, ekam shena stito jagat. What need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? He's speaking all these things, oh, of this, I'm this, all these vibhutis, all of these things that I'm the best of anything in this world, I'm sustaining everything. But he says, what is the need of all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, ekam shena, I pervade and support this entire universe, the to jagat. So this idea of a fragment of himself is interesting. We'll come back to that a little bit later. And so if we're going to use this term of incarnation, or the more technical term, avatar, what does it mean? We should actually understand what we're speaking about when we say that Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. Avatar means one who descends or who comes down. In that sense, it's more specific than the English term incarnation, because incarnation comes from the word carne, which means to take flesh. And from our understanding, there's a verse I have, but it's somewhere else here. It's not in the nature of Krishna to assume a material form. His form is not made of flesh and blood. His form is completely spiritual. So we use incarnation because it's very close to what we're trying to understand, but avatar is the more specific term. And Srila Prabhupada lists about 6 different types of avatars. I'll go briefly over them. I won't it's Purusha avatar, Leela avatar, Guna avatar, Yuga avatar, Manvanta avatar, and Shakyavesh avatar. And in general, I apologize because I have this bad tendency to go deeply into the weeds of whatever I'm trying to understand. And so I sometimes lose track of the main idea of it. So anytime I go into too many technical details, whatever I'll try to do is summarize it again. So we can understand the main point that we're trying to get from all of this tattva in Shastra. As to put it one way, we should understand the essence of whatever truth is being told in Shastra, or the sar of the truth of Shastra. So we have 6 different types of very slight diagram. And so there's so many of them that's around. One of them we can say is the Purusha avatar. I'll go very briefly into those, but those are the Vishnu forms that from them the entire universe emanates. That can be Mahavishnu, from whose body all the universes are emanating. You can see also in the Goloka chart there. Inside from Mahavishnu, or Karanodakshai Vishnu, literally it means he who rests in the Karana ocean, the causal ocean. So he's the cause of everything, as it's stated by his name. And he expands into Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Garbha ocean. So Garbha literally means womb. So in every universe, he's at the bottom of that universe. And from that, he gives birth through his navel to one lotus from whom Brahma appears. From Brahma, the entire universe is coming. So Garbha, the Garbha ocean is where he stays, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Then he expands one more time as Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Because without him being present in every single atom of this universe, and also as Paramatma within every living entity, then there cannot be any creation, any life, anything there. So these are all the Purushas, the controllers of this world, because from the biggest point of view down to the smallest, then Krishna or Vishnu is there, and he's sustaining. There's the Guna avatar. The Guna avatar is what we consider as the Trimurti, because they're taking care of the gunas, the prakriti of this world. When they are in charge of each particular aspect, sattva, rajas, and tamas, it does not mean that they're controlled by that nature. Some people, they hear that Lord Shiva or Mahadev he's the controller of tamas, and they misunderstand that he's controlled by tamas. But that's not true. He's totally self-controlled. But as a form of the Lord, as an expansion or transformation of the Lord, he is in charge of tamas in the world, because it's there in the world. It needs to be managed. And so a very powerful personality like Mahadev needs to be there. Similarly, Brahma is in charge of rajas, because rajas needs to be there. You need to have passionate energy in order to create. We see in startup culture, Tesla culture, so many different companies where there's a lot of moving and shaking and getting things done, because that's how you get things started. And so that's mode of passion. And then when it's created, maintenance is there by, again, you could call this Garbhodakshai Vishnu, you could call this Vishnu from Shweta Dweep, who is maintaining this universe like this. And so then both of these are there, but that's not what we think of when we think about avatars, right? We think about Dashavatar, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Nrsimha. And so Dashavatars, they're a good example that each of these 6 concepts, they're not mutually exclusive. The reason I picked that particular graphic is there's a lot of overlap between them all. And so most of the Dashavatars are what we consider Leela avatars. So they're in the purpose of maintaining the universe, they are there to establish order in the world. They conduct Leela, they're doing something or the other, and they're able to attract devotees in that way. And they are performing lila, hence the name. But in that sense, they're also taking that form of like making sure that they can keep the universe running. The reason that I mentioned that they're mutually exclusive is because you'll see, like, for example, in Bhagavatam, when we speak about Lila Avatar, that Narad Muni is described. The Kumaras are described. Dattatreya, so many different places. And yet we understand that Narad Muni and the Kumaras are Jivatattva. So they're assisting in the Leelas of Krishna, and they're empowered by Krishna. But they're also in the category of what we call Shakti Avesh Avatar. And Avesh is like an empowerment or like a bestowment of some kind of blessing or Leela or Shakti or something there. And so when we hear the term Shakti Avesh Avatar, then literally means that Krishna is bestowing some Shakti on this person to do something that's necessary for the running of the world. Whenever something has to happen in the world, does not mean that Lord Vishnu has to appear every single time for it to happen. Not everything is happening by millions and millions of Vishnu forms in this world. If anything great is happening, then also there's Krishna can bestow his power, bestow some mercy, bestow some blessings onto somebody for them to do that as well. And so that's what we call Shakti Avesh Avatar. To a lesser form, if there's some like, to a greater form, if we see that there's some significant Shakti being given, then that's Avesh Avatar. To a lesser form, then we also hear the term Vibhuti being used. So when we hear in chapter 10, oh, of all the aquatics, I'm the shark. Of all the thinkers, I'm Ushana or Shukracharya. Of exactly. So many things like that. That doesn't mean that Krishna is giving avatar every time or he's giving personal power. But the idea of vibhutis is that anything that is happening that's noteworthy in this world is happening only through the power of Krishna also. Like this similar things that they're Manvantara avatar, Yuga avatar, they're through various different time periods of the world, Krishna comes or Vishnu comes in order to reestablish order like this. But when we think about this as avatar, then that leans very closely with the very famous verses that come right before Janma Karma Chamitubhyam. Pretty sure almost all of you will know them. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam shidamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chidishkritam dharma samsthapanadhaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Right? So this idea of avatar is that whenever there's decline in dharma, whenever there's a rise in adharma, then Krishna Vishnu comes. And he comes to deliver the sadhus, to annihilate the miscreants, to reestablish dharma, and he goes like this again. And so this is all in terms of maintaining the universe. And like I said, when we hear about Shakti Avesh avatars, he doesn't have to come personally. He can bestow some mercy upon acharyas, upon various people. In fact, many devotees consider Srila Prabhupada to be, if not a vibhuti, then definitely an Avesh avatar. Because like Narada Muni, he's described in Bhagavatam as Shakti Avesh avatar because he's being given with Bhakti Shakti. And we see so many examples. Anytime you meet Narada Muni, he's always giving Bhakti to somebody. And so similarly, people argue that Srila Prabhupada, similarly, he came to the West and he gave Bhakti to everybody. So he can only do that with empowerment from Krishna. But again, like you see that there's this difficulty in distinguishing between Vishnu and Krishna. Even you heard me slip a couple times and say like Krishna instead of Vishnu, Vishnu instead of Krishna. And the general point of view, as Kaviraj Goswami says, he says, Avatari Narayana Krishna Avatar, Cheha Chatur Bhuja Ina Manusha Akar. A lot of people say that because Narayana has 4 hands, whereas Krishna looks just like a man, they say that Narayana is the original God, whereas Krishna is but an incarnation. You know, he's just, he appears because he's not as impressive looking as Lord Vishnu. And so therefore he has to give like universal form. He has to show the full Virat for everybody to believe that he's God. And he says, okay, sure. We might not say that. We can say, okay, they're the same as Avatar. Say Narayana Krishnera Swarup Abhed. Iha I Vigraha Kintu Akara Vibhed. They're the same personality of Godhead, but their bodily features may be different. But there's a problem with this conception of Avatar as just keeping the universe in order. If the only purpose of God is to just make sure the world keeps running, make sure that dharma is continuing to be established, making sure that the universe is pervaded by him, that it's not falling apart at every minute, we are reducing God to his job description. As a job description, this is not a defining characteristic of his identity. I can say, okay, I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. If you say that that's all that I am, that I'm a mechanical engineer, right now I'm working, but I'm not working. My title is non-mechanical engineer. Does that mean I stopped becoming me? Obviously not. Even if you go deeper, you can say, okay, my name is Arjun Keshav Singh. Some people will call me Arjun at work. At temple, people will call me Keshav. If I get initiated, then maybe they'll call me a different name. Does that mean that the person who I am is changing? No. Those names are coming with various job descriptions, but that does not speak to who I am as a defining characteristic. And so we should understand what is the defining characteristic of God. What is the nature of spirit of Vishnu, of Ishvara, beyond him just having a job description of he keeps the world running, we need him to sustain everything. So we hear this term Satchit Ananda, that he's made of Sat Chit and Ananda, right? That's there in Shastra. If we're going to go back to the original basis, then let's go back to the Vedas, because everything is stemming from Vedas. If we want to make any authoritative claim, there's some sticklers who will say, okay, why are you quoting from Mahabharata? Why are you quoting from Puranas? The first original source is Vedas, which means Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads also. Okay, sure. So then we can quote from Vedas if we want to understand what the nature of God is, the defining characteristic. So I'll read a purport from Ishopanishad where Srila Prabhupada quotes from Vedanta Sutra. The spiritual entities are meant for enjoyment, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. Anandamayo bhyasat. By nature and constitution, every living being, including the Supreme Lord, and each of his parts and parcels, is meant for eternal enjoyment. This is from purport of Ishopanishad 7. And so we can understand that this is a different level. We're not dealing with Krishna or Vishnu as his job description. This is getting to the nature of Vishnu. This is the dharma. If we speak about the dharma of an object, the dharma of water is to be wet. The dharma of fire is to give off heat and light. If you see fire that does not have heat and light, then you'll question whether it's actually fire. Right? That's different from its job description. A fire can be there in a kitchen, in a Bunsen burner for some chemistry experiment. It can be there even burning down somebody's home. But it's separate from that function that it's fulfilling. So this description is more specifically understanding. This is important. This is an important part, more than just all the different names of the types of avatars. And even more deeply than that, actually, Ananda or bliss is, sure, that's a characteristic of God, but it's very vague. It doesn't give us as much information about that. And so for Vaishnavas, there's another, I guess we could say Mahavakya, another statement from the Upanishads that speaks even more clearly to what the nature of God is. Where it says, this is from Chaitanya Upanishad 271, Raso Vaisaha, that God himself is rasa. Rasam Hyevayam. Labdhanandi bhavati. One who achieves this rasa becomes anandi, full of bliss. But the basis of ananda is rasa only. Rasa is a very difficult term to understand. Srila Prabhupada translates it as mellows. And he said, he actually, to quote him, he says, it's a very difficult term to translate to English, but because our spiritual master had used this word mellows, we use this term mellows. But he says very different things. He says that rasas can be used to describe taste of various variety, specifically various moods. And so when we spoke of that verse, Paritranaya Sadhana, that the various relationships that Krishna or Vishnu can enjoy with all his devotees, those are each rasas. One name for Krishna is Rasika Madhava. My father's name is Rasika Madhava Das. So he is a Rasika because he's able to enjoy very sweet and very specific relationships with each and every person. Distinct relationships. And so this gives us a very clear understanding for how we can distinguish between Krishna and Vishnu and all the other forms of what we call Vishnu Tattva. Because otherwise, if we just say, oh, Krishna is the source of Vishnu, Krishna is higher than Vishnu, then we're going to be confused. And anybody that sees us as like ISKCONites or ISKCON Wale people, we've all heard it, right? That, oh, you're just making something up. What is this ISKCON Wale? Oh, Krishna is higher than Vishnu. Nobody else says this. And it's true because tattva-wise, ontologically, ontology means the nature of their being. They're not different personalities. But if we want to distinguish them, then they're distinguished from the point of view of rasa here. As Vishnu, we can approach Lord Vishnu as servants. We approach him as devotees. We approach him from a point of view of Aishwarya, of like opulence. When we enter Vaikuntha, then there's opulence surrounding him. He's like, if you listen to Sri Vaishnava descriptions of Vaikuntha, then he's surrounded by servants. He has the Kaustubha Mani. He has Sri Vatsa mark. Everything is there. But in that point of view, can you think of being friends with Lord Narayana? You can't like joke with him like, I'm friends with Giri, I'm friends with Kirtan. I can make jokes with them. I can give them some trouble. They more often give me more trouble. You can't think of doing that with Lord Vishnu. There's a very like clear, you're here and he's there. In some of the avatars, the Leela avatars, you can see more relationships are there with Leela, right? Lord Nrsimha, he has this closeness with Prahlad Maharaj. He has this Vatsalya mood. He thinks of him as a son. Vamandev, he has Lord Indra as a brother. He has this fraternal relationship. Still, there's some distance. Especially Lord Ramachandra, he's there. He has parents, he has servants, but even he finds it very difficult to have dear friends. Because anybody that he approaches anybody with friendship, if he tries to embrace anybody, they'll slip out of his embrace and they'll touch his feet. There's still that sense of distance. And so, when we say that Krishna is the original source of rasa, when he's ontologically, he's the original Godhead. This is described very clearly in this book, The Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada, which is a summary of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so, when he was making this point, Rupa Goswami, the very first verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he uses a very technical, a very specific term to describe Krishna. And that's like his thesis statement for the rest of the entire book. He calls Krishna Akhila Rasamrita Murti. And Srila Prabhupada translates this as the reservoir of all pleasure, in which exist all the mellows of devotional service, namely Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya and Madhurya. So, Akhila, there's some joy in there, but Rasa Amrita Murti. He is personified, Murti, each of the nectars of the various rasas. These 5 forms of like love are very permanent forms in which anybody can have a deep relationship with God. And they're all possible only in Krishna. Shanta, there's the very passive form of just worship from afar, appreciating, passively appreciating. The Kumaras have this. Dasya, active service. Sakya, being a friend to the Lord. That's not possible with Lord Vishnu. That's not possible with Lord Narayan and Vaikuntha. Vatsalya. You can say, okay, Ramachandra, Sri Ram, he has parents. He has Kaushalya, he has Dasharat. But as the son of a king, he, like, everybody loves Lord Ramachandra, but it's very difficult for everybody in the kingdom to feel like he's their child. Yes, he's the kingdom's child, but he's the king's son. There's a difference there. In Vraj, every single uncle and auntie, they're considering Krishna to be their own child also. Every single Gopa Gopi. Vatsalya is there. Madhurya is there. When the sages of Dandakaranya meet Sri Ramchandra, they are so attracted by him that they want him to accept them as wives in the next life or in this life, anything. And so even Ahalya, anybody who's attracted by Lord Ramachandra, the one very distinct example we have is Shurpanakha. He cannot reciprocate that relationship because he's taken Ekapatni Vrat. However, as Krishna, he allows everybody to have that relationship with him, anybody who wants that relationship. And so therefore, we understand that through rasa, that's how we say that Krishna is the Supreme Personality. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Vishnu Paratatva, Purna Jnana Purnananda Parama Mahatva. Krishna is the original form of the personality of Godhead, the summum bonum of the all-pervading Vishnu. He's all perfect knowledge, all perfect bliss, and the supreme transcendence. That's the thesis statement that Kaviraj Goswami brings forward in 2.8. And we can say, okay, well, that's just that's in our scripture. That's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. That you could say that's a doctoral thesis based on Shastra, but that's not an actual Shastra. I want to see it in the Puranas and when we already stated it from the Vedas, but if we look in Bhagavatam specifically, then it's written in black and white. In Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 28. This is, according to Srila Prabhupada, the most important verse of Bhagavatam. Ete chamsa kala pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? All of you. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayantu Yuga Yuga. So all of the various avatars were described, all the Leela avatars, not just the Dasha avatar, but 25 different Leela avatars, so many different expansions were there. And like we said, they're mostly for maintaining the universe. They establish dharma. Indrayi Vyakulam Loke. Anybody who is disturbing the natural order, they're threatening the devatas, then these avatars, they appear, right? 2, this word but is there. So, okay, Krishna is included in that also. But Shukadeva Goswami makes it very clear. But Krishna is also different from those. Sure, you can include him in that. But he's Bhagavan Swayam. He is also the source of all of those avatars. Because he is the most complete form in which all relationships, all rasa, and therefore all ananda is present in him. Of course, if you want an example, then we can see in the commentary to that same verse, Akira Samritamurti, I think Rupa Goswami uses this verse from Bhagavatam. You all know that when Krishna enters Mathura, he comes with Balaram, he kills Kuvalyapi, the elephant, And finally, he enters into this wrestling arena because that's how Kamsa got him to come to Mathura, right? He said, okay, you come for this wrestling match. You know, it'll be some fun mela, you'll enjoy it. And so when he walks into that wrestling arena, that's the first time most of the people are seeing him. The Vrajavasis are also coming with him. But we can see how every different person has a different way of seeing him. Mallanam Ashanin Runam Nanavara, Srinam Smano Murtiman, Gopanam Svajano Satam, Shiti Bhujam, Shashta Swapitro Shishu, Mrityur Bhoja Patir Virad Avidusham, Chatram Padam Yoginam, Vrishninam Paradevatedi, Vidito Rangam Gata Sagruja. The various groups of people in this arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers, they saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, completely powerful. The men of Mathura, they saw him as the best of males, that he's the best representative of them. The women saw him as Cupid in person. The cowherd men, they saw him as the relative. He's one of us. The impious rulers see him as a chastiser. His parents as their child. The king of the Bhojas as death. So Kamsa sees him for the first time and he immediately understands this is my death. The unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form. Okay, somebody else has no other way of seeing Krishna. So they say, okay, he's in the entire universe. The Virat Rupa is just understanding that Krishna is pervading everything. The yogis as the absolute truths. Okay, the yogis will say, okay, he's the Paramatma. He's within my soul also. And the Vishnus as the supreme worshipable deity. That's one snapshot of seeing Krishna. And every single person in that arena, you can see in the painting, there's one Krishna there, but everybody's seeing him differently. Sridhar Swami says that like he gives navarasas, like the artistic, like 9 different ways of thinking of Krishna: laughter, chivalry, like those rasas, shringar, like so conjugal love, and each of those is present in that. And so when we say that Krishna is the source of Vishnu, that he's the most complete person, it's in terms of him as himself. Again, if I go back to this example of roles, I can have a role as a mechanical engineer, but that doesn't define me as a person. I have relationship as a sibling. I have a relationship as a child, as a friend, as a coworker too. And so the aspect of me that's concerned with my job description, the coworker side of me, there's very little about the real me that you can understand. I'm not like super close friends with the people I've started working with for a couple of months. I won't start speaking about Shastra with them. I won't start like bringing up my life's troubles. Compare that to my relationship as a sibling, for example. My younger sister, like she'll know a lot more about me as a person because of the deepness of that relationship. It does not mean that she doesn't know that I can work. She doesn't know me as a coworker or anything, because I can discuss work with her. Like she's going through an internship right now, so I'm giving her advice from my internships. So that relationship can still be there. So it encompasses other relationships. It doesn't mean that she's not a friend. So she has the same relationship as my friends also, but it encompasses more and more. And so if we want to understand that in relationship to Krishna as an avatar, Krishna as Vishnu, as tattva, ontologically, as personalities, there's no difference between each of those forms. If you say that Krishna and Balaram and Vishnu and everybody else is there, then they're different people, and that's not correct. As Kaviraj Goswami says, avatari deha saba avatari sthiti keho kona mate kahe yemana jar mati. All other incarnations are situated in potential form in the original body of the primeval Lord. Thus, according to one's opinion, one may address him as any one of the incarnations. So they're all present in the most complete form in Krishna. So you can address him as Vishnu also. You can say he's an incarnation of Vishnu. That's not correct. That's not incorrect. In fact, the way this was stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita is the first thing that made my father really convinced about this philosophy. He said that Kaviraj Goswami is really well named. He's the king of poets when he describes Krishna. He says to call Krishna an incarnation of Vishnu is not incorrect. It's not wrong. You can say that, sure. But it doesn't add anything to his glory. That's not his claim to fame. You can say, okay, the moon arises from the ocean. And in one sense, it can be true. You can see the moon physically coming up out of the ocean. If you're at the beach or somewhere where you see the ocean, it's arising up. But if you go back to the science of it, you can see that the ocean is actually being controlled by the moon. So that's why we say that Krishna is the original form of Godhead. And so when he comes, he doesn't come very often. Going back to Janma Karma Chamidibda, he does not appear in this world very often because that's not his concern. His concern is enjoying relationships with his devotees. And that's the most complete in Vrindavan. When we speak about rasas, relationships, the most potentiality for that is in Vrindavan. So we consider that main Godhead, Aradhya Bhagavan Rajesha Chanayas Tadhama Vrindavana, that he's God in Vrindavan. We say that he never leaves Vrindavan. Vrindavanam Parityajan Param Ekam Gacchati. He doesn't take even a step out of Vrindavan. Goloka eva nivisatya kilatma bhuta. And so when he steps out of Vrindavan, it's a very special thing. Only once in the day of Brahma does Krishna personally, not as an avatar, not as giving some power to somebody to keep the universe running. He comes personally. And why does he come? Satyasai Prabhu shared this very nice verse with me. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham deham astita bhajate tadrashi krida yashutva tat paro bhavet. When he assumes a human-like form, he does so to show mercy to his devotees. And he engages in pastimes. He's enjoying himself. That's his nature. The nature of God and the nature of us is also to enjoy. He engages in such pastimes as will attract those who hear about them to become dedicated to him. His coming here is a very special thing. It's very rare. Once in a day of Brahma, in 4,320,000,000 years, he comes. And he's coming just to invite us to engage, that we are also of this nature, to have enjoyment by having a deep relationship with Krishna. And so I was going to speak more about if he never leaves from Vrindavan, how does Krishna maintain the universe? And that's Balaram Tatra, because tomorrow is Balaram Purnima. But I just realized I used up all of my time. So I'll cut it halfway, or 2/3 of the way short. And if anybody has any questions or clarification points or something that stood out to them, because like I said, I don't want this to be just going deep into this verse or that verse and just a bunch of names and diagrams, which none of you can see anyway. But I want this to actually be understanding the Sara, the essence of who Krishna is and what's special about this form of Krishna. So in the very, very small amount of time, I'll pass it to whoever has questions, clarifications, or even if you want to share something that you specifically remember, so that we can actually understand and actually articulate this. Because Srila Prabhupada wanted us to not just say, okay, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He wants us to understand it so that we can actually explain it to somebody. And so no matter if I spoke about 1/3 of this or 1/4 of this, even if I cut this halfway short, then I'm very grateful to Satyasai Prabhu, because for the last month and a half, I've just been meditating on how to actually explain this. And it's been very purifying for myself. So I'll open this to everybody else. And pranams. There you go.
Yeah, devotees, please raise your hand if you have any question, comment, or reflections want to share in the temple hall. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a question. Is everybody able to hear me?
Is this on Zoom?
Yes, I'm on the Zoom.
Okay, Haribo. Akash, I'm hearing.
Haribol. And thank you for wonderful class indeed. I got a quick question for you, sir.
Sure.
As I heard, we all heard these various God's expansions, Krishna expansions, they have the different functions to play, and some of those functions are maintaining the natural order and keep the religion from falling or declining. Now, as we all know, we are in a Kali Yuga, where we see the times are getting worse and worse every time we hear the things which are kind of telling us there's a loss of religion, loss of order, and we are going deeper and deeper into those.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we interpret from this is the expansion, God's expansion, which are supposed to maintain the order. There's a loss of their functionality, their effectiveness, or there's another natural reason which is causing all these declines.
Okay. So if I've understood your question correctly, you're saying that this is Kali Yuga, right? So it's an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So if Krishna, as a job description, if the purpose of an avatar is to establish order, and this is a yuga of disorder, is this a failing of the avatars of Krishna? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
It's a very good question, actually. Some of it's what I would have spoken in the second half of the class, but I'll also speak of it here. We spoke about yuga avatars, right? How in each yuga, there's a various method of which we can understand Krishna, and that therefore he comes. In Kali Yuga, by nature, this is an age of quarrel, because every single living entity is here in this universe, and they're being born in various forms throughout all the yugas. In Satya Yuga, the people have 100,000 years lifespan, and they are mostly in the mode of sattva-gun, mode of goodness. They're very pure of mind, they can meditate very easily. And so Krishna appears in order to teach the practice of meditation. And so most of us, we can say that our nature as like our personalities, we would not fit in well in that time. And so then they have Treta Yuga, then their people are a little bit less qualified. The people who are not qualified to be born in Satya Yuga, they come in Treta Yuga. And their Yajna is there. The Lord incarnates as the Yuga avatar as Yajna, to teach how to perform Yajnas in order to please the Lord and achieve liberation. But some people will say, okay, well, that's also very intricate. Maybe you don't need to meditate for tens and hundreds of thousands of years, but it's very difficult. Vedic Sanskrit that's used in yajnas, what we call yajnas are not really yajnas now. Yajna in that age, the mantras themselves are used to light the fire. The mantras are used to like bring whatever sacrifice back to life. That's the power that they're using. And it was so distinct that Vedic Sanskrit has tones even. Like I didn't sing these verses, I just spoke them one tone. But if you hear like Vedas, then say Purusha Sukta. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, that each tone, each sound also has a specific tone it goes in. And not only mispronouncing one syllable, if you mispronounce one tone, the entire meaning of the yajna is changed. Ask Twashta, the father of Vitrasur. He didn't mispronounce even, he got one tone wrong. So that's difficult. We wouldn't fit in that yuga either. So therefore, then Dwapar Yuga is there, then deity worship is there. That's also difficult. 64 upachars. Every day, day in, day out, you're offering 64 items of worship to the Lord, waking up, putting to sleep, offering bhoga, cooking bhoga, offering more bhoga. In its very pure sense, deity worship is also very difficult. It's here because this is the Sandhya period of Kali Yuga, but one of the reasons that the reason I mentioned it is one of the reasons that Kali Yuga is an age of quarrel or age of like this is because we are not jivas of the quality to be in Satya Yuga. If we were of that quality, we would have been born in Satya Yuga. We are the leftovers of the leftovers of the leftovers, and therefore we come in Kali Yuga. So this is our fault in one sense. But still, Krishna does not leave us. Because we are the least qualified people, Krishna says, okay, fine. I'll give you the easiest method by which we can become delivered. And so, in one sense, in Padma Purana, I think it said, Kali Kale Name Rupe Krishna Avatar. Nama Hoite Harisa Vijayanishta. Padma Purana also they say, Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Sivgraha Purnishadha Nityamukta Abhinatva Nama Namino. So in Kali Yuga, when Krishna takes avatar, Kali Kali Name Rupe, he takes avatar as Nama, as Krishna Nama. Abhinatva Nama Namino. Because he's transcendental, Krishna's form is not material. So therefore his name is also not material. We said, right? Janma Karma Chame Divyam. His Janma is Divya. His Naam is also Divya. There's no difference in the purest sense between Krishna's name and Krishna himself. So Krishna is coming as avatar as his name. And so even for us who are not qualified to be in Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Satya Yuga, we can get complete reestablishment of dharma. We can get complete liberation. And more than that, I said, right, how rare that Krishna appears personally. We can get love of Krishna. This idea of bhakti rasa, that's even more rare than anything else. In Satya Yuga, even that's not very common. Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, they meditate on Vishnu, they get devotion, but not bhakti rasa, not like these various relationships with Krishna. Nobody can become friends and play with Nrsimhadev. That's possible with Krishna. And so in Kali Yuga, we can say that we're actually more fortunate than in any other yuga. And if second half, I would have spoken more about Mahaprabhu also and how he comes as the Yuga avatar to teach how to be a servant of Krishna. He teaches love of himself, also to understand it himself. So to answer your question, one is that why is Kali Yuga like this? Because Manda se manda matayo manda bhagya bhajita. In the beginning of Bhagavatam, they speak of the characteristics of the people of Kali Yuga. It's not that the age itself is like giving this upon us. It might be to some extent, but we ourselves are short-lived. We're lazy. We have poor memory. We don't want to do these things. So of course, what's going to happen except quarrel? So that's one. That's why the yuga is like that. And second of all, does that mean that Krishna has failed? No, he's coming as avatar also in Kali Yuga. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhu. But still, I'm trying to get a little more hang on to, as you say, that in this Kali Yuga is a result of our own mindsets, our own loss of karmas, our wrong thinking, everything going in a wrong direction. So we are here in this Kali Yuga. Now, we also know that our ultimate control is in the hands of the God. I mean, God is the supreme. And God can control everything that you and I have no overriding power. So why God kind of lets us fall into that where we do the bad karmas, we have everything bad in our mind, and we fall into this Kali Yuga. I mean, why cannot God control situation in a way that we never fall into this yuga. We always remain in the Satya Yuga, or the whole natural setup becomes such a pure that we remain in the Satya Yuga all the time.
Okay. I'll give a little briefer answer because I'm already losing track of time, even after cutting half of the class short.
Prabhu, feel free to shorten or stop here because the time is sense for everyone. So
I'll give like 2-minute answer, then I'll defer to Sati Sarpan. We say that Krishna is like, yeah, you're right in that we do not have power to override Krishna, as you said. However, I think you're also understating the amount of power we have. Krishna gives us free will, so we don't have no power whatsoever. It's not that we're helplessly here. We have free will in the extent that we are Jivya Swarupa Krishna and Nityadas, that we're part and parcel of Krishna. We have independence, so we can turn towards Krishna, we can turn away from Krishna. And so it's by our own free will that we've decided that I want to try to make it on my own, that I want to try to enjoy myself. And so therefore, it's on us to actually decide that we want to change this. Krishna cannot change our nature. He cannot form us into robots, destroy our free will, make us into little versions of him to serve him. Because Krishna has independence, we also have independence. But because we are small sparks, we only have minute independence. So we have that nature of Krishna that we want to enjoy. But as the spark can only be permanently there within the fire, we can only be permanently happy in a relationship with Krishna. So yes, it's hard. Yes, but Krishna is giving us the opportunity. We come in Kali Yuga because we don't have that much discipline. Still, we have enough discipline to choose to chant the holy name. So that's enough there. I'll defer to that. Further on, like Balaram Tattva speaks more about this, about Guru Tattva and the idea of how bhakti comes in. I'll save that for another class. If I get invited back after overstaying both my welcomes.
thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That's a wonderful class. It's nice and pleasure to hear from you and Tattva and in detail and answering your questions. We are running out of time. We are moving on to the next part of our program, Arati. Please raise at your places. Vandya is going to sing Arati Kirtan. And we will give a round of applause to Keshav Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
I'm reading and studying for the last month, and then also preparing slides. Well, nobody could see the slides.
Hare Krishna Kirtan, how are you? I forgot to reply you on that message. I will. Thank you. Yeah, Meera. Meera. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dina
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादे पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare क्या चीज़? Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Madhavaya Namaha, Madhavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Nitai Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Nanda Kirtananda Kirtan Hare Rama Madhavaya Namah. Madhaya Mama Keshaya Davaya Namah. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Dhari Dhanamurana Yadaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita. Jaya Radha Krishna, Jaya Radha Krishna, Jaya Radha Krishna, Jaya Radha Krishna. Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudev, Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक तथा राष्ट्रदूत श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की, इसकन फाउंडर आचार्य स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की, नमो विष्णुपाद परिव्राजक तथा राष्ट्रदूत श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की, नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की, प्रेम से कौशिक कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद की, नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की, मायापुर धाम की, श्री वृंदावन धाम की, श्री श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन धाम की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, all glory to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रहलादलाददायिने प्रहलादलाददायिने हिरण्याकाशीपूर्वक्षः शिलाटङ्कानखालये शिलाटङ्कानखालये नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो एतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो एतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो बाहे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो बाहे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदें शरणं प्रपदे नरसिंहमदें शरणं प्रपदे
जय जगदीश हरे
तव कर कमल वरे नाखाम अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृंगाम केशवदीता नर हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
तव कर कमल अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृंगार केशवदीता नर हरि रूपा जय जगदीश
अब कर कमल वरे नाखा अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृंगाम केशवदृता नर हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तां पां केशवदीता नर हरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
Hare Krishna devotees. Thank you, Sevya, for wonderful Kirtan. Thank you, Keshav.